If you were to summarize what you want people to learn from your panel presentation today, the core points, what would it be?
We live in an incredible world where, through social media and through the internet, I think there are a lot of different or slightly altered business models. I know as a young person, we get this feeling of, everything is new, right? I understand these things have been around for some time, but I think especially to maybe some members of your audience who are more traditional media people, I think a lot of people continue to devalue themselves and their stories and what they can uniquely bring to the table. And whereas we live in a world where you don't necessarily have to be the best at whatever your chosen subject matter or expertise is, but if you can combine that with a story and you have a unique delivery mechanism, maybe you can hook people's attention really well. Maybe you're really good at editing and you can capture someone's attention with a really nice production value, right? There's so many different ways to really garner people's attention, and I think I want that to be sort of the takeaway of if you can learn how to do that repeatedly over time, you can create, a really cool kind of a lifestyle solo business, and you have access in today's world to, fractional support from, management to production support, to legal and accounting and financial support. I mean, all these things are now at our fingertips, and it's really, really cool, and it's an exciting place to be. Career Colon is a career discovery and education platform, both for young professionals and for people who I call first-in professionals who are the first in their family to pursue a corporate or business career path.
Why'd you create it?
Well, I myself am a first-in professional. My dad was a plumber, my mom was a school teacher, and so the first time I had tied a tie or heard the phrase 401k, I was 23, 24 years old, and so there was this whole environment and set of rules and assumptions that I just wasn't used to, and so I had to kind of learn it myself, getting started here in New York with a career that spanned from consulting to startups and then media agencies, and so I started sharing really around 2020 just my own experiences and what I had learned, and I started to grow a humble but now quite large audience, mainly on Instagram and TikTok, and now I've started to expand into LinkedIn and YouTube as well, just kind of sharing these tips and things that I learn alongside my audience.
Now, I will confess that I'm somewhat older than you are, but is your career counseling based upon what you're learning as you're going through your own career, or based upon what you have learned and sharing your wisdom with others?
It's a good question. I think it's now become a platform where it's a bit of a blending of both. I think there's a large contingent of my audience that finds my content very relatable because I talk about my own experiences, as you say, sort of navigating those first kind of earlier years of my career. But now, hey, you bring up a good point. Like, I'm a career creator and I don't work in a traditional job anymore, right? My full-time job is sort of as this media marketing personality, but I'm approaching this new role in the same way I approached any of my other jobs. And so that's with a really big emphasis on networking and building relationships. I'm continuing to learn new skills and reach out to new industries and meet new people. And then I'm building my own team, right? So I've got a talent agent. I work with, an accountant and a team of lawyers, right? And so I'm sort of approaching my career as a creator the same way I approached my more traditional career path.
It's very, very cool and totally different than the way my career started.
Okay. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, well, we don't have that much time and the story's pretty sordid, so we'll just skip over that. You were giving a talk today at NAB. What was the purpose, the goal of your talk?
So I'll be sitting on a panel today talking about the path of a modern solopreneur. And so I'll be on that panel with a couple of other large YouTube creators, and we're just going to sort of talk about how in today's really business landscape, a lot of these larger creators or full-time creators have to build their own kind of, fractional armies or fractional businesses around themselves to help them do what they do. Whether that's production support to help them, edit and get their content out there, whether, a lot of creators are launching their own products, and so whether that's a matcha brand or a productivity suite or, media products and services, right, and how do you sort of organize yourself around that? And then just from a brand partnerships perspective, how do you get managed and how do you, partner with brands and get sponsors for your podcast or for your Instagram page? And so it's really become, this term of solopreneurship is now being applied to content creators. And so I'll be on that panel to just sort of lend my perspective on how I approach content creation from a business perspective.
But that assumes that you are the product that's being marketed. And really all of this revolves around your brand and who you are.
Right.
But if you're a media creator, remember you said you have to get production help to get your message out there. If you're the production help, how did they grow their career? How did they build their business? What skills have you learned that would apply to them?
Well, I think One thing that I tell a lot of people, because people come up to me sometimes and they say, let's be honest here, right? I'm not a CEO, right? I've never been or held an executive position, right? I don't have a 20, 30, 40-year corporate career, right? So there's a lot of things I don't know.
I can tell just by looking at you that's true.
Right. But I think a lot of people discount the knowledge that they do know and sort of their own journey to get there. And so I think combining whatever it is you have learned, whether your career has been 5 years, 10 years, or 15 plus, with an element of your personal story or personal narrative that makes that incredibly relatable or incredibly valuable, I think that, in essence, is what really makes a creator's audience drawn to them. It's not necessarily that I'm giving you a networking tip that's never been seen before, but I'm applying it in a story about my own life and my own experience that you as an audience member may feel more connected to than hearing it from a larger brand or media publication rather than that individual creator.
It seems to me that the strength of what you're doing is that you have the ability to admit that you've made mistakes. And that what you're doing is you're having people learn from what you did wrong and building on that to do something that's right, as opposed to a career that I'm an expert, I've done this for a while, I know what I'm doing, so you're hiring my expertise.
That's right.
In your case, you're hiring your ability to learn.
That's right.
And branding that, I don't mean to say hiring, but the brand that you offer
Absolutely.
is a brand of growth as opposed to a brand of knowledge.
That's really accurate. Yeah, I tell people that I'm not a guru, I'm a guide. And there's sort of this whole thing where I think I've got sort of a 2 to 4 year lead on my audience, right? And so, I agree with what you said completely. I'm not coming there as sort of the sage wisdom sort of coming down from the mountaintop. I'm saying, hey, I just had this situation happen. This is crazy, but here's what I learned from it. And so if you get to a similar point in your career, here's, some suggestions, or just here's the situation, and maybe, approach it in the best way you see fit.
All right. I'll confess something else that I shouldn't confess in public, but social media is not my friend. Okay? I am a Luddite when it comes to social media. I'm quite happy not having to deal anything with it, and you live in social media.
Very much so.
Absolutely the opposite. What makes social media successful? When you're doing a social media campaign or trying to communicate your ideas to the world, what's effective in social media, and is it the same across YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, or do you have to have a different approach for each?
I love this question. So I think I'll stick to the principles that are, I think, ubiquitous across platforms, because I think we could be here all day talking about the nuances of platform to platform communication, but I think at the end of the day it's all about storytelling and speaking from a moment of nuance and authenticity. I was on other conversations this week around how business to business, software platforms, can market their products to other businesses and to their consumers, right? These are productivity suites, HR benefits administration, right? Note-taking platforms, some of the most boring stuff you can probably think of. And I know one of the things that I've said, because I've worked with a lot of those brands, right? And the thing is, I've made that relevant to my audience by nudging the product as a solution to an actual problem or story in my own career. And so I think we're past the point of this kind of features and benefits or product-led messaging in social media marketing. And so I think as an entrepreneur or even a creator that wants to partner with brands in the future, you have to think about the stories you're telling on these platforms and how you can tell something that's personal, that's relatable, that's specific, and then how that one platform sort of helped you moved past that situation. I think that's the most effective thing that kind of works across platform, is the quality of the stories you're telling.
Storytelling, really?
I think so, yeah.
Can you tell stories in a short period of time?
I'm terrified about where your next question is going, but yeah, I believe I can.
Well, I'm not going to force you to tell a story. Okay. You're okay. This is inquiring about the process. I'm not looking for end results. Another challenge that you have, I think, when you live in social media, is that you're always on, 24 hours a day. There is no sleep, so to speak.
Yeah.
How do you recharge your batteries when everybody is saying, Colin, what's your latest? How come you haven't said anything for 5 minutes? My life is over. I'm dying. How do you feed that insatiable machine?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's something that, especially going into this full time, as I did earlier this year, I haven't been, creating on the internet for years and years and years. I think it's something where I had to learn from myself in terms of how to best manage my energy and the moments where I should be doing certain tasks. And so most times, I post 5 days a week on, at least 3 to 5 platforms a day, whether that's, YouTube,
Threads, Twitter or X, Instagram, all these different platforms. But I'm doing the majority of the, call it creative production, the filming, the writing, the editing, well, the filming and the writing really, on like 1 or 2 days of the week. And so I can do all that on that time when I feel like I'm in a real like emotional and energetic state to do that, because that, again, that's the storytelling, and that's what needs to come across in the stories I'm telling. And then those other days are really spent, responding to emails, coming to events, having interesting conversations, and doing the sorts of things that charge me up to then go back into a filming mode later. And so I think this idea that I'm constantly walking around with a phone in my face, I mean, it's certainly how a phase of my career was, but I learned very quickly that wasn't sustainable. And so I've got to now plan my weeks around how I can manage my energy and my emotional state.
Because it'll suck you dry.
100%. Yeah, and they'll take as much from you as you will give it, and then they'll ask for more. So especially
and make you feel guilty for it. I know exactly what you mean. Know exactly. If you were to summarize what you want people to learn from your panel presentation today, the core points, what would it be?
We live in an incredible world where, through social media and through the internet, I think there are a lot of different or slightly altered business models. I know as a young person, we get this feeling of, everything is new, right? I understand these things have been around for some time, but I think, especially to maybe some members of your audience who are more traditional media people, I think a lot of people continue to devalue themselves and their stories and what they can uniquely bring to the table. And whereas we live in a world where you don't necessarily have to be the best at whatever your chosen subject matter or expertise is, but if you can combine that with a story and you have a unique delivery mechanism, maybe you can hook people's attention really well, maybe you're really good at editing and you can capture someone's attention with a really nice production value, right? There's so many different ways to really garner people's attention, and I think I want that to be sort of the takeaway of, if you can learn how to do that repeatedly over time, you can create, a really cool kind of a lifestyle solo business, and you have access in today's world to, fractional support from, management to production support, to legal and accounting and financial support. I mean, all these things are now at our fingertips, and it's really, really cool, and it's an exciting place to be.
It sounds like you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be authentic.
That's right. You have to be you. Yeah. You have to be consistent, but you don't have to be perfect.
Consistent in what way?
I think you have to show up. I get up around 5 or 5:30 each morning, and I don't put a camera in my face the first thing, right? I make sure that when I do film that content, I'm in a place where I feel like I can at least show up like fully, right? I think a lot of times authenticity can lead to haggardness. That's not the message here. And so, yeah, I think you have to be consistent in terms of how you present your brand to the world, because it still is social media. I mean, it's media, and so you still have to show up in a way. But yeah, you don't have to lie or present a version of your life that isn't necessarily true. Just be consistent in the way you approach your content and in your media, and I think people will respond to that.